Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm feeling really good today because I got a very good piece of news finally. So I'm taping this video now while I'm in a good mood and I can kind of like transfer my enthusiasm. So we're picking off kind of where we left off. Last time I showed you a zygopetalum that was suffering from severe pseudobulb rot. This time I want to show you what I do to try and save the remnants of that plant. So here you see it before you. You can see that the new growth is still there. Still looks alright. Hasn't withered away, hasn't succumbed to rot. The wound, let me just see if I can show it to you, bring it in close. You can see there's kind of cows over. There's still a lot of cinnamon, but you can see the edges turned white. The texture became dry and bumpy, and I don't know if I can get rid of some of the cinnamon and show you, but I think it's kind of ingrained in there now. Either way, you can see it's not a wet, open wound anymore. So that's kind of soft, that's close, that's all good now. And here as well, I just want to show you. Do you see the little root nubbins right over there? Those are my hope. I really hope that those will continue to develop and save this plant. And if not, maybe there'll be some others right behind it. But yeah, today I just want to go through challenges of saving a bulb like this, and talk about what needs to be kept in mind and the best way of tackling this. I want to discuss the important factors of bringing such an orchid back from the brink of death and show you a method that I've used successfully before and that many others have used on the internet as well, which is called the sphag-in-bag method. I'll tell you more about the sphag-in-bag method when I get to it, but first I just want to tell you about the situation now. So the situation now is that this orchid does not have roots, even though it looks like it's beginning to form some. On top of that, it doesn't have a lot of stores, because the one pseudobulb it has left is not very large, it's not the healthiest, although the rest of the tissue still looks good, and as you can see, it's already wrinkling, it's not fully plumped up, so this has very limited stores. And the thing to keep in mind with an orchid in this state, which is to say rootless, is that it isn't actually taking up any more nutrients or moisture. What it has is what it's got. And you can talk about foliar feeding, but first of all, this orchid doesn't really have much in the way of foliage anymore. And second of all, foliar feeding has been shown to be quite inefficient and it doesn't do very much. And in a case like this, where I've already had rot once, I kind of don't want to be missing the new growth. So no foliar feeding in this scenario at all. But the scenario that we have now is that this plant has limited storage supplies and is constantly losing moisture. So the only building blocks it has to be able to build that new growth and push out those new roots is constantly being lost to the atmosphere. Now, in order to make this plant survive and give it the best chance it's got, we need to change its environment so that that moisture loss is minimized. Now, one of the ways to do that is the sphag-in-bag method that I mentioned before. Here we have a plastic bag. It's far too big. It's the only one I've got at the moment, so that's why we're just using it. I'm too lazy to go to the store first. This is what I have in the house. This is what I'm using. So here we have the bag. Here we have the orchids. And here we have a bit of moist moss. Now what we're going to do is we're going to open this bag. And essentially what we're going to do is we're just going to take some moss and we're going to put that in the bag. And then we're going to take the orchid and we're also putting that in the bag. But we're not making the moss and the orchid touch each other because that increases the chance of rot because the moisture levels might get too high around the new growth. And since this orchid has already been shown to be quite susceptible to rot, we don't want that. But before I even do that, I want to do something else to reduce the risk of fungal growth inside the bag. Because one thing about a bag like this is that it will hold moisture really nicely, even though it's perforated plastic, as you can see. It will still hold the moisture really nicely. But it will have very limited airflow in there, which is, high moisture and limited airflow, that's a breeding ground for fungus. And you don't want that, because if your plant gets completely covered in fungus, you also have a problem. The plant will also just not develop properly and probably die. So what I'm going to do, I don't know if this actually properly works. I didn't look into it as far as scientific literature and all that kind of stuff is concerned. But I did it before and it worked. Which is I'm going to spray the inside of this bag with hydrogen peroxide 3%, which you've seen before on this channel. It's like the only antiseptic I use more or less, which is quite limiting, but so far I haven't had that many problems. And I'm just going to spray the inside of this bag in the hope that it will help reduce the amount of fungal spores in there and reduce the chance of a fungal infection. So that's been sprayed. Now what you do is you take the sphagnum moss, which should be moist, as I said. Not wet. Wet is too much, I think, but moist. And you just put it in one corner of the bag. Like that. You don't even need to put that much. I think this is enough. I don't need to put the rest. I think I'll spray it one more time with some water. And there it is. It's just stuck in one corner. Then you take your orchid, you place it in the other corner. So there we go. That's all there is to the Sphag-in-Bag method. Now all you have to really keep an eye on is the fungal growth. And I'm hoping nothing will be in there, nothing will start to grow. But that's the one big risk with this method. So you really have to be on top of it and check it occasionally to see whether there's fungal growth. And if there is, you need to intervene and get rid of it and maybe stop doing the Sphag-in-Bag method. Maybe just spray it a bit and leave it be. If this method doesn't work for you, and I know it doesn't work for a lot of people because of the fungal growth, then there are other options. Another thing that I've done in the past, this is the other method I was talking about. It has the same idea as the Sphag-in-Bag method, where you put a plant that's struggling and pretty much rootless in a container with some moist sphagnum moss. Do not have them in contact, that's why I have the little clay pot here, to make sure it's not actually sitting on the sphagnum moss. And you put in a container that maintains the humidity. Now, when you do it like this in a vase, it decreases the chances of fungus a little bit, just because there's more air movement. You still have the high humidity trapped here within the actual vase, but the air is still able to exchange quite efficiently with the outside world. So I think this is a very good intermediate. If the Sphag-in-Bag method doesn't work for you, you could try this. Maybe this does work for you. Alright, and that was everything. My orchid is now in its bag. Hopefully the high humidity will allow it to do its job and create new roots before it runs out of reserves. And that's all we can do, really. Now it's just a waiting game. All you can do is have patience, which arguably is the hardest part of this hobby. So I hope you learned something today. I hope I was of assistance to you. If you have any tips for me as to how to make the recovery process for my orchids better than what it currently is, please do leave them behind in the comments somewhere below. I'm always eager to learn, especially when it comes to bringing orchids back from the brink of death. And I wish you a very happy day.